All right, let's get the very latest now by talking to our correspondent Hashem Ahelbarra. He's in Gaziantep on the Turkish-Syria border. And Hashem, can you explain to us why the city of Hasaka is being so bitterly contested between Kurdish forces and Syrian government troops?
Martin, since the uprising in Syria started in 2011, the Kurdish factions were quick to control half of the city of Hasaka, and the army maintained a presence, particularly government buildings, garrisons and military bases. And there was some sort of tacit agreement between the Syrian government and the Kurdish factions to avoid confrontation, prompting the other Syrian rebel factions to accuse the Kurdish fighters of colluding with the Syrian regime. Now things are changing on the ground, and the Kurdish factions, particularly the YPG, which is the armed military branch of the Kurdish factions, is now on the offensive, saying that it is determined this time to drive Assad fighters, soldiers out of Hasaka and control it. As we speak, Martin, Kurdish fighters control a huge area in northern Syria that stretches from Hasaka all the way to Afrin on the outskirts of Aleppo. This is quite significant for them because this is part of their self-autonomous region, which they call Rojava, and they seem to be pretty much determined this time to continue the fight until all that area is uncontested and under their own control.
And this is likely then, Hashem, isn't it, to set alarm bells ringing in the region, because it's not just the Syrian government who are reluctant to allow more power, more self-determination for the Kurds in northeastern Syria.
Absolutely. This is a development that is closely monitored by the Turkish government, which has in the past voiced concerns about the territorial gains made by the SDF, which is the umbrella organization of the different Kurdish factions fighting in northern Syria. The Turkish government accuses most of these factions, particularly the YPG, of being an extension of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, which Turkey considers a terrorist organization. And the Turkish government said in the past that it is definitely not going to tolerate a Syrian Kurdish presence on the border with Turkey. It's quite also delicate for the Americans because over the past 2 years in particular, the Americans have been teaming up with the SDF in their push to drive ISIL out of the areas they control in northern Syria. And with the fighting now raging between government troops and the Kurdish factions, this is going to put the Americans in a very delicate situation. They made it quite clear in the past that the Kurdish factions are their major allies in Syria, and just a few days ago, when the Syrian government was pounding Kurdish areas in Hasaka, the Americans had to scramble some of the Syrian aircrafts for fear that their own special operations ground forces might be targeted in those airstrikes. So the general sentiment as we speak in Syria is that people are concerned Syria may never be the same again, it might just further fall apart because each faction is determined this time to have its own land.
Hashem Ahelbarra live in Gaziantep. Thank you.